What's up, guys? Nick here, and welcome back to another review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, this game was on the Wii U, I think 2 years ago, back in late 2015. And the reason I am reviewing this is because Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is coming out for the Switch very soon. And also because I've played it recently and forgot how fun this game is, and I recently beat all the affinity missions, and I've done quite a bit in the game. So in the game I am like 130 hours in. I haven't beat it 100%, so there might be a few things that I'm missing in this review, but I did like 70% of the game, which is still a lot. And even though 130 hours seems like a lot, in most games you beat it 100%, in this game I only beat 70% of it because it is a game with a lot of content in it. And in this game, I feel like it has the most content out of the other Xeno games, being Xenogears, Xenosaga, and Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, which I'll be referencing to throughout this review. So Xenoblade Chronicles X, it has this story of in the future, kind of, where the United States and the entire world basically is getting shot at by these aliens, and basically their world is getting destroyed or something like that. I don't really know. The story's not that interesting as Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, but basically the aliens are invading Earth or whatever, which are called the Ganglion, and they're their own species. And so the United States has this white whale which they are bringing over to find a new planet called Planet Mira, and which they crash land on. And they have this like little pod which is called New LA, which has like a whole city in it with good amount of people. And yeah, that's basically the story, is to try and defeat the Ganglion and protect New LA, and to find the life hold which got crashed off of the white whale, as so did the pod with New LA. So a whole bunch of team called Blades are trying to go find this life hold in order to find their real bodies to survive. So yeah, that's basically the story of this game. It's not as memorable and not as good of a story slash plot as Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii did. With Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, it had you had like a lot of different questions, and throughout the game you get some of them answered, while others you'll get answered later, and then later on you'll get more questions that will be asked throughout the story, and later on you'll find them, like, what are these faced mechon, what really is the Monado, and multiple questions like that in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii. In this game there really aren't any questions that you have. There are a few plot twists here and there, like one of the main characters betraying you, and also there's a whole story about like yourself and what are these like people on the ship, and if they are real or if they're not. And yeah, that's basically the only questions you have in this game, where in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii there's a lot of different questions that you have, and you want to play the game more to find out. But in this game there really isn't. And the ending, by the way, a lot of people hate it, and I really agree too, because it leaves you on a cliffhanger, and it doesn't really, like, it has you still having questions, where in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii all your questions are answered and it ends the game on a high note and everything is good. But in this game there's still more to know, but yet they don't tell you even after the game is done. So it's weird, and it kind of tells you that there should be like a sequel to this game, because the ending really didn't get resolved. And I won't really spoil anything, but yeah, the ending's not so good, and nothing really, you still have questions for the game. Anyway, in this game the main character is yourself, and you actually get to customize your character, which is you can customize its name, its voice. You can customize its body, its hair, its color skin, all that type of stuff, which is really cool. And I know a lot of people might like it because in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a lot of people, to be honest, don't really like Rex's design, but like he's not like as Shulk, like he's not really a memorable character, and he just looks bland. But in this character, the main character is what you want it to be, so you can be as bland as you want or as cool as you want. So it really just depends on what the what you make him as, which I feel like is pretty cool. And also I like how you can actually change the voice of your character too, which is really cool. As for the gameplay and the other characters, a lot of people say that this game doesn't really have memorable characters. I kind of disagree with that. Like, if you actually go into the affinity missions, which in this game there are these affinity missions where you need a certain amount of affinity with a certain character in order to access them. There are also some other requirements too for the affinity mission, and when doing so, you learn a lot about these characters, and some of my favorites being Bose and Murderous. And a lot of people say that the only memorable characters are Elma and Lynn, which are your two main partners. But I disagree with that. There are a lot of different and cool characters that have their own unique personalities, and if you go through the affinity missions and see their personalities and what they go on through life, and see their heart-to-hearts where you like visit them at different times and see what they're up to, it really does give the characters a lot of personality than other people think. And there's actually a lot of character in these characters, and it's actually really awesome. And there are a lot of characters, a lot of playable characters in this game. Every basically main character is playable. You have like, I think up to like 20 playable characters. You have Elle, you have Elma, you have Lynn, you have Murderous, you have Bose, you have Nagi, you have Celica, and a bunch of other characters that you can play as. I also like the fact that there are a lot of different like species of characters in this game. I think in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii, I think there was like 3 or 4 species. You had the Manon, the humans, the forget the not the Telethia, but the people that kind of turn into Telethia. And then the other people like Eggle, I forget what they're actually called, but those were the main 4 types. But in this game there are a lot more. You have the Nopon, the Xenos, you have the Ganglion, you have the Rothian, and a few more that I kind of forget the names of. But there are a lot more species in this game, which I hope in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 they'll have the same thing. The really cool thing about this game, and you get later on, is the skells. And the combat in this game is just like how it was in Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, where you have your arts and you have auto attack, and you can walk around the enemy and attack them from behind or to the side or in the front or in the back, and your arts can actually do bonus damage depending on where you attack them from. And I really like that fact and the whole combat system, and it's basically the same as Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii. But there's a lot more things that you can do. You have classes where you can actually change your arts. Instead of in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii, really the only way to change your arts were to change your characters. But in this game you can actually choose a class that you want to be. Like, you might want to be like a helper guy that will give defense buffs or like offense buffs to people. Maybe you want to be a powerhouse and have a bunch of powerful attacks and be like a glass cannon like Shulk was in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii. Or maybe you want to be like a ranged attacker and have a bunch of firepower, which is another cool thing in this game. In this game you actually have 2 different types of attacks. You have the melee weapons, which are your knives or your shields or your like swords and stuff, and then you also have ranged attacks, which are like your guns and Gatling guns and all that stuff, which is really cool, and it brings a lot more arts and a lot more strategy involved for fighting these enemies. But there's a new type of combat in this game, which also is a cool thing that you can do in general, which are skells, or dolls in the Japanese version. And these things are like giant robots, and they're similar to the first game, which is Xenogears. First game in the Xeno games being Xenogears, where there were these gears, like they're called gears, and they were giant robots. And I have been playing Xenogears, but I'm only like 2 hours in, and I know you can fight with the gears, but I don't know if you can like run around with them like you can in this game. And in this game you have these skells that you can buy from the store, but you actually need a skell license, and you get a skell license I think in like chapter 8 or somewhere around there, and then later on you'll get like a skell flight module where you'll be able to fly around and stuff, which is really cool. And sadly it comes late in the game, but if you stay tuned for that, you basically are undefeated, especially when you get a really powerful skell. And in skells you can fly around, or you can do like heavy attacks, and your arts depend on your gear. So you can have this gear that might be really powerful, but it might have a bad art to it, and you kind of have to balance yourself between having power and having good arts to it. Another thing that you can actually do is make your own gear, basically, where in the administrative district in New LA you can go to Armory Alley, and there's a bunch of cool stuff in there that you can do. One of which is develop your own gear, which you need like different materials and other stuff to make your own like skells, make your own skell weapons and skell gear, make your own ground gear and all this cool stuff. But yeah, some of the problems that I found though were like money. Really, it matters like towards the beginning of the game to get ground gear and stuff, and to get your like first and second skell. But later on you'll have enough like materials and stuff that money doesn't really matter, and you can like get a really powerful skell and by just developing new gear. And then once you get that, you really don't need anything else, because I think once you develop a skell frame, I don't think you can change the gear, or maybe that's just me, because some of the best skells are the Ares 70 and the Ares 90, and once you get them you're really unstoppable, and there's no real use for money. But another thing that I like to mention that I thought was pretty good in this game that they fixed in Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, which was limited time missions, where in Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii there were these missions that had limited time, where you had a certain time frame to do these missions, whether it was the area was going to get destroyed later on in the game, or the person was going to die or leave or something like that. Some excuse to have a limited time mission. So once like that thing was gone or whatever, you could never do that mission again unless you started your game over again, which I found kind of annoying. But in this game there are no limited time missions, even though there are a lot of missions, and there's this like one area where you can collect 20 basic missions and you can't go over, which I kind of found disappointing. But you can only have 20 basic missions in your mission log. But there's this place called, I think, Mission Concourse or something like that, where you can select basic missions. And a thing that I found annoying though was that they would appear randomly. Like if you go up to the concourse, you can see that there'll be like a list of basic missions, but then if you backed out and you went in again, you would find that it would be a bit different, and you'd have to keep doing that like if you wanted a certain mission, which I found a bit annoying. But it wasn't that annoying. You just had to do it a couple times to get the mission that you wanted, maybe for like an affinity mission or for some specific mission that you wanted or some specific award you wanted. But yeah, and you get a lot of you get a decent amount of coins, and also you get some affinity by doing some basic missions. And there are a lot of missions, but there also are a lot of achievements in this game. I think there's like 750 or something like that, and I only got like 450 to be honest. So yeah, there are a lot of achievements, but some of them are pretty easy to get. Like some of them is like start the game, or like complete chapter 1 and be like 1/5 of the way done, 2/5 of the way done. Like you would get like I think 3 or 4 achievements for like completing a chapter in the story mode, and some of them are easy, but others are hard, like in the original Xenoblade Chronicles. So yeah, there's also the Collectopedia, which you just put in the material that you found in each continent, which there are 5 continents in this game. Unlike in Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, there was just a Bionis and Mechonis. In this game there are 5 different continents which you can explore, and each of them have like different like environments. Like you have Primadora, which is like just grassland. Then you have like Noctilum, which is like rainforest, and then you have Caldros, which is like all lava and stuff. Then you have like Oblivia, which is like all desert, and then you have like Skylium, which is like I guess kind of snowy. I don't really know how to explain. It's just like some white sand world, like I guess a beach kind of. I don't really know how to explain Skylium, but yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing them right, to be honest too. There are also there are, I guess you could say, timed missions, but they're not really timed. They're just like certain, you have to access them from a certain time frame, and the same thing goes with Heart to Hearts, which in the Xenoblade Chronicles it was kind of the same thing, where it was Heart to Heart, where you would go over to this like certain area and like discuss things with your partner and stuff, and you have to have a certain amount of affinity. But in this one, you actually had to have your partner not on your team, and you'd have to find intel, which you would go around, and there would be like these speech bubbles, and you would find like intel and like information about different areas in the New LA, and also in the continents, and that would be useful to defeat like tyrants or to collect treasure, or to find like when Heart to Hearts happen. And they're pretty useful, but some of them can be hard to find and a bit annoying. But yeah, some Heart to Hearts like require some time frames, and others require pets, which you actually have to put a pet on like the mission board. You have to like, you have like this customized barracks, and you have to actually put like a certain pet, either a cat or a dog, in order for a Heart to Heart to happen. I don't know why, but yeah, it's really weird, and I don't really get it. But yeah, then once you do so, like you'll have like a Heart to Heart, and like that pet will be there for some reason. I don't really know why you have to do that, but I guess just another requirement for a Heart to Heart. But yeah, those Heart to Hearts give you a lot of affinity though, and they can help for to access the affinity missions, which each affinity mission has like voice acting cutscenes, like the story missions and stuff, which is another thing that I liked. In this game, I felt like there was a lot more like action cutscenes than in Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Like in Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, there were some action cutscenes, but I feel like there were more in this game, mainly because there was the affinity missions and how they had like their own story to them, and it had a lot of personality and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot more, I feel like, cutscenes in this game than Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, mainly because it was like, I don't really know how to explain it, but like it has like a lot more content to it, I guess, and a lot more things, I guess, happen, even though it's kind of just the same thing, like defeating the ganglion, or it's like some story. But yeah, they all have voice acting, or most of them have. Actually, yeah, I think all cutscenes have voice acting, but there are some cutscenes that are not cutscenes, but like there's some like things that you have to do that is just like talking and text bubbles, and then there's also like cutscenes where you can like move around the camera, but they'll still be voice acting, but there will be like no action happening. It'll just be like their mouths moving and voice acting happening, and then there'll be like full out cutscenes that have like important things that happen in like robot battle or scale battles and like all these like different actions that happen throughout the cutscene, which is pretty cool. And I loved each and every cutscene, especially the Infinity missions, like I said. But yeah, this game is actually really great, and I don't know if like many people bought this game, but it's actually like one of those, I guess, underrated Wii U titles, and it has a lot of content to it. Like I said, I'm still not done with it. Only 70% done and 130 hours in. But yeah, I mean, hopefully Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Switch will have just as much content, if not more. Just as much playable characters, if not more, and a bunch of other stuff like that. But yeah, it's really cool once you do get the flyable skill, because you can really go a lot faster. Which is another thing that I want to mention, is that there's actually a sprint button. By clicking the left analog stick, you actually get to sprint, where in Xenoblade Chronicles Wii, your character is a bit slow and there's no real run button. But in this game, you actually have a sprint button, and you can run around a lot faster, but still not as fast as the skills that you get. Because this world is actually massive, and there are some fast travel points, which I found like it was really good. On the Wii U gamepad, it's probably this is the best game that uses the gamepad, because on the gamepad you see the entire world, and you can click like different like hexagons that you can fast travel to, and also get to like check up on like the information on each hexagon, like maybe from the intel, like to learn about like the treasure or the tyrants or the other different like missions and heart-to-hearts and affinity missions, and like you can see them on the gamepad to see what you're knowing, like when you're waiting for the game to load, because this game does have pretty good loading times. They're a bit long, but you can kind of get some things. I think they're called like basic data or something like that on the eShop, which like is 2 gigabytes or something like that, to make the game load faster. But yeah, loading times are a bit slow, I do have to admit. But in that time, you can be on the gamepad and checking up on stuff, which I found pretty useful, and I really did enjoy that. But yeah, there are these things called probes where you go around and you put down probes, and you can fast travel to any probe that you want, which is pretty useful. And once you have the scale, you can use the probes when you have the flying scale, which, I mean, if your destination's on the other half of the world, then definitely do that. But you can just fly on your scale most of the time to any area that you need to go, and it'll show like a little blue dot on where you're supposed to go on your gamepad, or if you're looking on the TV, there'll be like a little yellow circle of where you're supposed to be, like in the top right corner. But yeah, overall this game didn't really have that many bad things about them. It's really the story that kind of disappointing, I guess, because Xenoblade Chronicles was such a great story on the Wii version, but here on Xenoblade Chronicles X, the story wasn't as good. But I mean, you couldn't really beat Xenoblade Chronicles story, but it still wasn't that good in general. But other than that, it is a really great game, and highly recommend it if you have a Wii U. Hopefully this actually gets a port to the Switch, or maybe there'll be a Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to finish that ending that was never finished. But anyway, that's gonna be it for today, guys. So if I had to rate this game, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. It's really good and has a lot of content. Only thing is the story. Other than that, thank you guys all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more reviews right here on Untitled. Bye.